Hey, I'm Xander Wyatt, here to talk a little bit about my book, Songwriter's Introduction to Guitar. This book is really encompassing about all of the techniques and kind of theory that you might need, so I'm just going to go through a couple things. I'm going to start with chords, right? So, you know, one of the big things that we talk about with chords is relationships, right? So there's a trinity of chords in any key. And that's what I've talked about here. So, you know, starting out, we've got key of A. What we want to do is, you know, we're going to start with this left-hand handshake. The logic here is that you want to keep your wrist straight. And so I'm going to curl my fingers in. I want to start with the guide finger, which is whatever finger goes on the biggest string. So there's my A. Now as I shift, I'm going to keep my pointer finger down. I'm going to go to a D chord. All right. And then I'm going to go back to the A. I got to make room, push my pointer finger back out of the way, and then to the E. So this is just kind of the idea is that you just want to hear how these chords work together. And you may already know some of this, but it's good to go through each one. So same with D, all right? This particular D, this particular G is going to be what we use for bluegrass. It's the forefinger. This pointer finger is kind of an optional thing to bring. As I go D to G, you can just mute it. The reason why I call it a bluegrass G is in bluegrass, you can do like that G run. So we try to free that finger up. Also, we try to avoid having certain tones in open strings, which we'll talk about more as we go through chords. But anyway, so I've got D. I'm going to keep that ring finger down as a pivot. Going to the G, and back to D, and into the A. All right, so keep going. I've got now key of G. So this is one of the biggest changes for people. So I'm going from a G chord to a C. So I gotta hop that ring finger up. And what I'll do when I teach people, because you know the thing that people don't think about is that G, the pointer finger's on the 2nd fret, whereas C, your pointer finger has to go back to the 1st fret. So there's a reach and a kind of a position change. But if you keep something connected, even a pinky, and then make your change to that ring, and then go back with that middle up and over. So what I'm doing is I'm just sort of training my fingers to get used to that change. And it makes a huge difference when you're trying to do something fast, right? So I'm reaching back for my pointer. But what you never want to do is roll. So when we talk about the guide finger, the ring finger is the most important. Start with the ring, then you've got a C, right? G to C. And then, so now same thing, back to G, and then D. All right, so now we're at key of C. Key of C is interesting because we're gonna do a different G. So start with our C, then go to F. I have this F written. There are a lot of different ways that you can play an F. Some people prefer to do this guy, where I'm actually going ring, pinky, middle pointer, muting the little string. You can have the thumb over the top. When we do thumb over the top, anytime you do that, you're not actually reaching your thumb over. You're trying to take this little part of your thumb to just hook that top string. That has the ring and pointer finger in common. The one that I have written here is great because it sits on that root. So the as written is a good way to practice it as well. Back to C. But now that G I was talking about, I'm going to take that middle and ring, and we're going to go to the top strings, and then pinky's going to go to the bottom. Now this has that open B, which can be undesirable, but I love it for finger picking. You know, or just doing that, we're going between a G and then adding. But you can plant that pinky the whole time, put that on your C. But it's simpler if you're, you know, not having to jump to that G. There's good times and bad times for it. So it's good to learn both, listen to them. But that open B string on the G chord, I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier when I was talking about not wanting some open strings. It can sound out of tune. It's just the nature of the guitar. So a lot of times we won't want that G because it just kind of, it'll mesh with your voice badly. All right, so moving on, we're gonna go into E. This is pretty straight ahead, except for that B7 rather than a traditional B, just because that's a bar chord and we're trying not to do things harder than they need to be. So A, B7. Now, what I did after that is I wrote all these minors and sevens. So a minor chord, you know, in relation to a normal, you know, these D minor, B minor, that's your little guy. If you look further, there's a bar chord B minor too. These are great supplementary chords. So G, D, E minor to C. That becomes a great option. Same C, G, A minor to F. I used that F again. I kind of used the combination, didn't I? But now the sevens aren't listed under the listening examples, and these are great. You can use it for a blues effect, or you can just use them as what would be the five. So we'll talk more about what numerical things are, but for now, it's a good thing to just go through, learn them note for note that way. Just experiment with what they sound like. I mean, that's the whole goal, right? We're learning new things, try to experiment with them. Try it out.